So without any further ado, I'm going to share a video that gives you a bit of a background to NHS Sustainability Partnership. So if you don't know us, please enjoy the video. If you've already seen it before, hopefully it won't be too tough to watch it again. It is quite a nice one. So I'm just going to share my screen and run that. If the panelists can let me know that that's shared. Yes, thank you. Great, so that should give you guys a bit of a feel for our mission, our aims, and what we're hoping to keep going through the events that we're running, the content that we're creating, and just building this this community out as much as possible. So I'm going to go straight over to Ben, who is our first speaker. Ben is from NHS Digital. He's going to start the show today and give us some insight as to what he's working on and any sustainability issues that he has to deal with. Are you able to give us a bit of an intro to yourself, Ben, what you do and what you're going to be talking about? Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. Hi, everybody. So my name's Ben Tongue. Can you see those slides? Yeah. Yeah, I'll take that as a yeah. So I'm sustainability lead at NHS Digital, full member of IEMA and chartered environmentalist. I've been working with NHS Digital for 3 and a bit years now to look at, and essentially our kind of big challenge is looking at how we can design sustainability into our digital service delivery. And I'm looking to just give you a bit of a view from the centre really about what we're thinking about at the crossover points of digital health and sustainability. I think one really important point just to make early in the presentation is what is sustainability. So, you know, quite a lot of attention goes to the net zero carbon focus at the moment, and that's great. We need to do that, obviously. But at NHS Digital, we're giving resilience and climate change adaptation equal priority. And that's just taking a sort of precautionary view at the future and what we're going to need to ensure that the health service is ready for in terms of environmental breakdown that sadly is coming our way. So if you wanted to dig a bit deeper into any of the content, this is an extract of slides that is relevant to our annual sustainability report from last year, which you can find online. So it's all there, and I'm just going to give you a bit of a whistle-stop tour really, and a bit of more current thinking on what's going on, and that's internally. So we made a strong start last year. We were quite late to the party, but we delivered a 44% carbon reduction. And I think we've got some really good progress, but really what we're looking to do is look at how we can embed sustainability into our key decision-making processes. So that's things like data and ICT, technical architecture, commercial teams processes, risk teams processes, HR, comms, business services. And to do that, we early in our programme, we broke our thinking down into these 3 areas. So there's no great surprises there being a digital organisation. More recently, we've started to think about a simple breakdown of how we work, buy and deliver. So just running through each of those ones, I'm not going to go into any great detail here, but you know, this is our carbon analysis. In the context of a growing organisation, we've made some quite significant improvements there. Procurement data, scope 3 data on embodied carbon within our equipment is obviously really challenging. And our big improvement that we've made is through data hosting. So we're a data organisation. NHS Digital is the primary data system provider for the NHS. And so our data hosting is really critical, and I'll come on to that a little bit in a second. This is an interesting little case study. It's of our Exeter offices, and we put some eco bling on there, some solar panels, which is great. But actually at the same time, we completely optimized our server rooms on site and radically reduced the amount of energy that they were using, to the point that the solar panels were actually powering the whole building in the sunny months last summer virtually. So, you know, it's that kind of system level thinking is obviously really important. So that's a nice little case study, but really what I'm here to talk to you today about is the digital sustainability stuff. So when I first started working in NHS Digital a few years ago, digital and sustainability weren't really connected in the public discourse. It's much more recently there's been this discussion online, various programs out there about the impacts of watching videos being streamed and stuff like that online. So, you know, there's a case study paper that's been written that shows that going to the cinema actually has a lower carbon footprint than watching a movie at home. So in total, digital systems have a similar current carbon footprint to aviation, but it's forecast to go up massively, up to potentially 20% of energy use globally by 2030. You know, look at the Bitcoin system, hideously bad design from an environmental standpoint, has the energy use of, I think Argentina was the last mark. But there's other things as well, looking at material use as well. So phones have more gold in than gold ore. We're running out of some critical raw materials. Rare earth mining causes horrible pollution in some areas of the world. And there's all kinds of ethical upstream supply chain issues to be considered as well when thinking about digital infrastructure. So that's a bit about why should we be worrying about this, and I think it's always important to remember that. And then what we're doing now is working across the ALB ecosystem as part of the Greener NHS Net Zero plan. So we're working with NHSX and NHS England to design the digital work stream and how we can start to really factor in sensible decision-making choices for digital health solutions. So those would include things like hosting choices, architectural choices around like redundancy, duplication, runtime, on-demand services. Gets quite technical quite quickly. More simple stuff, you know, deleting unnecessary data. Are we always doing that? Do we have efficient single user devices? So developing systems that would run on phones, so you don't need extra stuff, or tablets. Are we thinking about our imagery or video resolution now in the world of COVID home working? We need to, the amount of data that's flying around is crazy. So, you know, how do we set as low resolution as possible and stop storing stuff? How do we buy circular? Make sure we're moving into leasing arrangements or buying remanufactured, for example, or modular or repairable kit. Maximize virtual engagements. But a really big one with all of this is interoperability, and how do we make sure that we're leveraging out the big efficiency savings by all working to the same standards, so we can start to create really smart solutions. So that in a nutshell is the kind of stuff that we're pondering on, exactly how to do it, and we're building tool sets and tools for quantifying the improvements there at the moment. This is a slide that shows what we've done from a hosting perspective. So essentially as a sort of 4-stage process, moving insourcing from less efficient outsourced facilities, and then moving into very efficient co-location data centers, so specific data centers, not running our own in-house solutions, and then starting to move into the cloud, which has got some really good performers, but some of the data transparency is an issue at the moment, so we're struggling to quantify in all cases quite how big those improvements are. But just to give you a feel, that the whole journey here is leveraged out something like 20 times reduction in energy usage for our data platforms. So, you know, it's really significant, and it's obviously a key thing for us. I'm not going to run through these in any detail, but there's a few slides in this presentation which we can share, where you can dig into the annual report for more info on how we've created some enabled savings. So the EPS system saves paper and travel. There's all these kind of enabled savings. So we look at both the infrastructural costs, if you like, and then through a net gain lens, how that what enabled savings does that infrastructure release. So these case studies are a bit more focusing on those downstream savings that digital provides in the frontline healthcare service. So app and login, really important current things. Login's really interesting because it provides a reusable way of patients to access lots of different services, and starts to bring lots and lots of at-home treatment availability, which can create some big savings. But there's other interesting linkages into other pillars of sustainability here. So be it like digital exclusion, if you haven't got the latest tech, can you use all this stuff? Are people going to get left behind? You know, really, really important questions. How can it not contribute to health inequality issues? So, and there's a few other things that we're thinking about there, but I think I've spoken about them a bit already, so I won't labour those points now. I'm just going to jump over this slide. I'll just finish off with a bit on the adaptation and resilience lens. So we're asking some big questions here now about, given the fact that the climate and environmental crisis is a public health crisis, what can we do to make sure that our digital health services are resilient to the likely impacts of climate breakdown and will bring broader resilience to the health service? This is actually courtesy of Alexis, who's on the call today, this diagram. So thanks very much, Alexis, for this. It's been really useful in getting the point across. And just to sort of dig into it slightly, we're starting to do this in a really functional way. So we've now got sustainability as one of the risk areas on our main organisational risk radar, and we're looking at critical points of failure for the business as part of our climate change risk assessment process. So, you know, what things could happen that would stop us being able to deliver our services from an environmental breakdown perspective. You know, COVID is an ecological issue at heart, coming from damaging bat habitats. So, you know, that we are living through what I'd call the first global sustainability disruption. So, you know, this is a really live issue for us at the moment, and I think it's really helping us ramp up attention in this risk and resilience lens for sustainability work, moving it from a kind of optional, nice to have, gold star, big tick kind of thing through to we better do this, or, you know, or the wheels might start falling off. So yeah, I think that's my last slide, but yes, it is. So I hope that was really useful, interesting, and I'll stop there and pass on to the next speaker.
Thanks, Ben. Really great to hear what you guys are doing, you know, the cloud migration, that kind of stuff. It's such a big task. It's not something that's easy for you guys to do. I know that, and it's great to get a little bit of insight. I think that in terms of the environmental breakdown piece, you're completely right, and it's so interesting to talk about COVID under that lens, and for people to start being like, you know, this is actually happening. That we're not just talking about correlation here; we're talking about causation, and this is an outcome of an ecological issue. So that relationship is really good, and it's really good to hear that, Alexis, you're contributing to our event, and you're not even on the panel. So thanks for that resource. I want to go on to a really great contact of mine, Abdullah, and I think that some of the points that you've raised, Ben, I think maybe things that Abdullah wants to touch upon himself, and hopefully will clear up a few things and allow people to have a little bit more clearer vision on some stuff. So I'll hand over to you, Abdullah, if you want to give us a bit of an intro to who you are and what you do and all the interesting stuff that you get up to.
Lovely. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes. Yep, that's it. Perfect. Lovely. And I hope you can see my slides there as well. Is that right?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Perfect. Great. Thanks very much, Ben, for the presentation. And obviously I take my hat off to you because it's something you're pushing very hard on in the NHS. It's something that we need to change. One of the things you said, which I'm a very big advocate of, is about Bitcoin. So I'm happy to give a different opinion than what people see in the media if anybody wants to talk about that. But I don't want to hijack this presentation. We're talking about sustainability in the NHS, and a bit about my background. So I'm a general practitioner. I live in Leeds. I know Georgia because she used to help us with our marketing for our companies. So I also am the CEO and founder of two companies, one called Medical Chain and one called My Clinic. So it's something which I'm very passionate about when it comes to digitization of our healthcare systems and the kind of impact we can do there. So I'll quickly run through what it is that we do. And then when I was asked to talk about sustainability, and you really think about it, these are long, well overdue changes that we should have done in our healthcare system, and we've had the ability to do it. And thankfully, with people like Ben and other people driving it forward, then hopefully we'll see that day come sooner rather than later. So two systems we have, which I think help towards sustainability. One is our health passport, and we have actually had this name now for 2 years, but it's getting some negative press, as you can imagine, so we might need to think of a different name. And the other one is My Clinic. Essentially, health passport, very simple. It's the idea of patients having access to their medical records. And the benefits of this is that we cut down so much on paper waste in terms of sending appointments, checking clinic letters, reviewing your own information. It also opens up patient choice. So the idea is that you're not tethered or anchored towards one practice because you have access to all of your records. You can take this information and port it with you from one appointment to another. We've been working on this for a few years, and those involved in NHS Digital will know how hard it's been to get access to the EMIS and TPP data. So that's the primary care electronic health record system data, but thankfully we've managed to do it. And now we're just adding our own dashboard element on there to do with patient journals so that we can have a live patient reported outcomes at the same time, running it side by side with the patient's records, which is very valuable for research, which will hopefully drive things going forwards as well. The Bitcoin element is because our system is unique, because we have a blockchain system, hence the term medical chain. And happy to talk about that later on, maybe in the Q&A, so that I give the other speakers a chance to talk as well about it. But I think there's a lot of misconceptions about how much energy that Bitcoin is doing, and energy production is not the same as energy consumption, and energy consumption is not the same as pollution. So we just have to clear up a few things there. So this is essentially what our system is like. So if you were to go to your GP and ask for access to your medical records, they would give you linkage keys. And when you use the linkage keys, you'd be able to port your information to us. Now, the other thing that we do and that we're very passionate about is our telemedicine element. And Georgia will know this because she was on this journey with us, where we were building access to patient records, and we were going to build on a telemedicine element there. So while you're doing a video call with somebody, you could give live access to your medical records at the same time. COVID came around, so instead of trying to integrate these two systems or make it modular, we just completely put My Clinic on the side. And this is something which has taken off. It's been used in 72 countries since last March until now, so I say a year and a bit. And obviously, telemedicine, in my opinion, especially as a GP, and I use it in my daily practice, I think it really helps with sustainability. And there's many reasons behind that as well. This is, again, just screenshots of what it's like in case anybody hasn't seen it. It's a free to use system. If anybody wanted to do any kind of telemedicine tryouts, they could do it. And we're on the digital first online consultation, video consultation framework as well. So we're approved by the NHS Digital boys and girls as well. So from the environmental impact, there's a very good paper on the Royal College of Physicians Journal, which talks about purely telemedicine, but then you can expand it outside beyond that as well. So in the healthcare sector, it contributes 5% of global net emissions, and that comes out to 2 gigatons of carbon dioxide emissions as well, of which 7% of that is purely on transport. Now, when you think about transport, you have to factor in different types of transport. So it's you driving to the practice or the clinic, it's you trying to find a parking space. The hospitals are bigger, there's more appointments, we need bigger car parking spaces, meaning more vehicles are coming there as well. So you can see how this can increase and increase and increase. And in terms of the UK's numbers, they're on a par with the average of the rest of the world as well. So we're making up about 10% of our contribution to carbon dioxide emissions by our transport as well. So we have to think about, is there a more long-term sustainable way of having consultations with patients without having to drag them into the hospital? There are some specialties, there are some investigations where these are necessary. Somebody has to come in for a chest x-ray. You can't do a chest x-ray in your home, but there's certainly lots of consultations. And I think the scenario we've gone through with COVID has proven that yes, I would say that we haven't got the balance right from a clinician's perspective. We're doing too much over the phone and too much video consultation, and we would probably benefit from trying to get that balance back. But doing everything completely face-to-face and filling up our car parks and making people wait in a waiting room for 20, 30 minutes to be seen, that's not the right answer either. So we need a good balance there as well. And this is something which has already been looked into the NHS, and they're already obviously making big changes. And the same, not just going on about transport, but it's the same issues when it comes to the paperwork, sending appointments, cancelling appointments, sending clinic letters. All of this can be digitized. All of this can be saved and stored on digital devices such as your laptop, your mobile phone, whatever it may be. So hopefully we're moving in this direction. We're going to start having a big impact here. And I think the only way to make this impact is if all of us play our part and try to be advocates for this kind of change in technology so that it can have a sustainable impact. So I won't rattle on more than that. And I'm glad that I was invited to this talk, and I'm looking more, I suppose, to the Q&A session and being challenged there.
I love how what you're looking forward to is being challenged, Abdullah. It sounds just like you.
That's the fun bit. That's always the fun bit.
So yeah, super interesting. Obviously, I forgot that the product was called the Health Passport. What a shame. What, you know, that can have such negative connotations now with the COVID passport. So yeah. Completely different things, obviously, as you've mentioned there. The transport piece, really, really important. We're actually running a webinar specifically on transport during the Day of Action, which will be a session in the morning on the 4th of June, which is already live on our site. If you want to talk a little bit more specifically about transport, anyone wants to tune into that one, please sign up to that. And yeah, we'll look forward to, there's been some questions already, and there's been people very, very interested in the chat as well, Abdullah. There was one lady, Jennifer, who wants to get in touch with you later on to talk about getting involved with the health showcase in the Leeds City region. So hopefully we'll hook you guys up after this event. So next up we have Daniel, who's going to talk to us about smart city tech. So hold on to your tech hats, guys, because this is going to be a really exciting one. Hopefully, Dan, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. Let me just share my screen, so hopefully you can see that. So yeah, my name's Dan, and I'm the CTO of Route Connect. We're a smart cities technology company, and we help our clients understand the movement of vehicles and people across spaces of interest. Today, I'm going to be speaking more broadly about how smart cities technology can help the NHS reach its target of being the first net zero national health service. So to begin, I wanted to just capture what we mean by a smart city. And in the vision of smart cities, we talk about a network of data sources, so cameras, temperature sensors, motion sensors, and combining those with analytics tools to inform both human and automated decision making. And so for many aspects of life, that can lead to more efficient use of resources, services running more reliably, reductions in cost, and improvements in quality. And so this all sounds pretty fantastic. And so I could go on to talk about how the NHS can capitalize on this idea of a connected city. And that's certainly what I'm going to do to start with. But I also want to acknowledge some elephants in the room around the challenges smart cities face with data privacy, as well as inter-organizational collaboration. But reassured, I'll get to those by the end of the presentation as well. So let's recap the carbon footprint of the NHS. So there was a report published at the end of 2020 where the NHS outlined a whole bunch of areas that contribute to its footprint. And it also provided percentages of how each category contributed. And the good news there is that there are many categories which smart city technology can help to reduce either indirectly or directly. And so one area smart cities can help cause a direct impact is travel. And so in the report, it was stated that 14% of the NHS's carbon footprint comes from travel in various forms. And so and smart cities can help here. So for example, we can process the existing network of traffic cameras, and from that we can get an understanding of the flow of traffic and use that to inform the signaling at traffic junctions, or we can provide that information to route planning applications and provide a very informed approach to route planning. So this is something we've explored at Route Connect with the Dubai Police and through pilots funded by the Department for Transport. And whilst full-scale rollouts of this technology are still in the pilot stage in the UK, in China, they've fully rolled this out in a number of cities and analysed its impact. So in Hangzhou, when they took this approach and automated the signals at junctions, they found that journey time was reduced by an average of 3 minutes, and the response time of emergency vehicles was improved by up to 50%. So not only are we reducing carbon emissions, but we're also allowing us to spend less time stuck in vehicles, as well as getting emergency vehicles to the people that need them faster. And sorry, just having some issues with my slides. There we go. So another area of direct impact, not just road travel, but also if we make improvements to cleaner forms of travel, such as trains, and active travel modalities, such as bikes, these can start to become the go-to choice for journeying to and from medical facilities. So we're actually currently working with on a pilot with Transport for Wales, in which we use video analytics to understand and mitigate the causes of delays, and that improves the reliability and experience of rail travel. And we're also looking at a plan with ScotRail and Alstom to test the impact of gaining real-time train capacity information and how that can provide impact on the boarding times. So that information would be displayed at customer information screens and allow passengers to board a train via its least busiest carriages. And that makes the experience more pleasant, reducing and reduces the time trains stay at the station. For active travel, video analytics and other sensor technology are being deployed in pilots across the UK to improve bicycle safety, as well as improve and measure the impact of deploying cycle schemes. So with rail travel having 10 times less carbon emissions per mile per person than cars, and with active travel having almost a negligible carbon footprint, anything we can do to encourage the appropriate use of these forms amongst commuting staff, patients, and visitors will greatly impact the NHS's carbon footprint. So another area where smart cities can have a direct impact is the management of facilities and resources. And so within the NHS, building energy was attributed with 10% of the NHS's footprint. And it was also noted that real-time energy management could contribute up to 2.3% of the total required reduction in carbon emissions to meet the NHS's target. And in addition to this, the report also notes that any investment into this lower energy usage and management, that cost will come back through cost savings. That investment will come back through cost savings within 2 years of adopting the technology. So I just wanted to also show what this might look like. So with digital twins, like those currently being trialed by Halcyon within hospitals, as seen here, they can pull together a variety of sensor data across the hospital, and that can be used to inform energy management, room bookings, cleaning schedules, and even help staff and patients navigate the buildings more efficiently. And this leads to better resource utilization and a lower carbon footprint. And then I want to switch gears to some indirect impacts that smart cities technology can have. For this, there's a couple of preventative healthcare implications. So we tackled the direct impact that reducing the use of cars and increasing the usage of greener forms of travel can have. But as a secondary effect, utilizing these forms of travel can reduce the level of harmful particulates and gases in the air, and they lead to many problematic long-term health conditions. So by reducing these harmful things in the air, we can prevent those conditions, reducing the load on the NHS, and therefore decreasing carbon emissions as a result. And of course, we also then all lead healthier lives as well. And a final indirect impact I wanted to touch on through preventative measures is how smart city technology can be used to analyze and understand evolving healthcare issues within society. So, for example, the monitoring of social distancing and mask compliance during pandemics. So by analysing the anonymous movements of pedestrians within public spaces and detecting the level of mask compliance, interventions can be undertaken where needed to improve the adherence to medical advice. Additionally, with access to this data, medical professionals and researchers can develop a much better understanding of these evolving healthcare situations, which leads to better treatment and better public education. So, although not yet fully quantified, COVID-19's impact on the NHS has been huge. And of course, that will have a knock-on effect on its carbon footprint. So as our cities get smarter, they can help reduce this impact of broad range of health concerns within society. And as promised, I want to close by addressing the elephants in the room that many smart city evangelists leave unmentioned in the corner, and starting with data privacy. So we've already heard today from Medical Chain about how their technology can be used to take ownership of our medical data and make it controllably shareable when needed. What I want to focus on is how we can approach privacy at the sensor level. So at Root Connect, we process video to detect the movement within a space across multiple cameras. And traditionally within the field of video analytics, building a complete journey across multiple cameras would require the use of facial recognition technology, which breaks any hope of anonymity. One of our advantages is that we spent a lot of time innovating away the need for that pervasive approach, and instead can provide fully anonymized journey data across a space. This still allows for powerful understanding and management of movement across that space, whilst importantly maintaining all of our privacy. And sorry. And lastly, I wanted to acknowledge the challenge of bringing together data and sensors from multiple organizations. And I've heard from many members of the NHS that this has traditionally been a particular challenge. And of course, it's a challenge in many domains as well. But during my previous role as a research assistant at Cardiff University, myself and colleagues published a number of papers on how we can tackle collaboration and controlled data sharing between multiple organizations. And building on that, a pilot is in the works involving the university, Root Connect, Stoffel, and the SA Group to demonstrate this form of large-scale inter-organizational smart city network. Within the pilot, we'll bring together Cardiff University's emergency services, their stadia, and public transport to provide a holistic approach to managing the city, particularly during its busiest days. And we look forward to sharing the outcomes soon. So that concludes a whistle-stop tour of smart cities and how they can help the NHS reach its net zero goal. I've discussed how they can help reduce emissions directly through their involvement in travel and facilities management, and also indirectly through their impact on pollution and providing an understanding and opportunity for intervention with healthcare situations like COVID-19. Finally, I've hoped to address some of the challenges around data privacy and inter-organizational collaboration. And hopefully I've suggested that there are mitigations for both of these challenges. So feel free to reach out if you'd like to discuss any of these topics in more detail, and thanks for listening.
Thanks, Dan. Super interesting. I mean, I could talk about digital twins, machine vision, all day long. So I won't dwell on that thing. I think that there's been a lot of elephants in the room today, and I think that's really important that we are self-challenging, because one of the issues that we have in terms of implementation of tech, etc., is the fear of the new and the fear. And if we are going in and saying, I know that you're afraid of things like data challenges, here's how we're already providing a solution to that. That's great. And I think as well, it's really important how you've mirrored the tone of some of the elements of Ben's talk and the sheer importance of the of interoperability. There's the interoperability within the NHS, and you working with Ben's team and people within the NHS digital, and making sure that there's transparency between different trusts and all that kind of thing is working properly. But then there's also the importance of making sure that the NHS itself is interoperable with everything else around it, and all the travel issues and all of those types of things. It's not a silo on itself. Our healthcare system is not a silo. It needs to be integrated, and working with things like smart cities and the world around it. So yeah, really, really interesting stuff. You did mention about facilities management, so that's going to bring us straight on to Daphne, who I know is going to be talking about that in a little bit more detail. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Daphne.
Yep, perfect. Just gonna share my screen. If it will let me. Can everyone see that?
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. Hi everyone, I'm Daphne Delana and I'm a sustainability consultant at ETL. I've been here about 4 years, and during my time here I was also part of the Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Foundation Trust sustainability team. So I think in the last 4 years we can agree sort of how much the sustainability agenda and the net zero carbon agenda has grown in importance, which is what we need, to be honest. So just a bit of a background about ETL. So ETL is a multidisciplinary consultancy practice. We're formed in 2014 and we're wholly owned by Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Foundation Trust. So all of our profits are reinvested into the NHS. We've got a team of over 80 experts who have knowledge of health science, research and higher education. And we specialize in providing services from project and program management, cost management, healthcare strategy and planning, property services and sustainability. Just a bit more around sort of sustainability at ETL. We've supported a lot of trusts in terms of strategic plan development and implementation. So green planning, heat decarbonisation planning, travel planning, sustainable design guidance, net zero buildings, funding support and business case development. So we supported a number of trusts with their public sector decarbonisation scheme applications. And then we've got 4 procurement frameworks, which I'll talk in more depth later on, that help basically NHS organisations and public sector organisations access to a lot of the technologies that we'll be needing to implement to reach our targets. We work closely with the suppliers on these frameworks to keep up to date with new advances in technologies and find opportunities for integration across organizations. I think we've touched upon people need to try things. We need to pilot, we need to pilot technologies and get them in, within the NHS and working. And, what happens is usually someone starts it and then people get on board, but we need people to sort of, in some ways, take those risks and start the process. I'm just going to go into a bit more depth into sort of the journey that we go on with NHS organisations and that NHS organisations need to take, and sort of to understand what technological interventions we need to be putting in place. So the first thing is understanding the current baseline. It's the most important step in developing a strategy. Without knowing where we are now, we don't know what steps we need to take to progress towards commitments and targets. And every organization is very different. Some are rural, some are more urban. This really impacts actually what a specific carbon footprint looks like. And the first step in that is sort of defining the scope and boundaries. But obviously with NHS Trust, this is really aligned with the NHS delivering a net zero carbon report. And Dan sort of popped it up on the screen earlier in terms of the NHS carbon footprint. So the emissions we control directly, and the NHS carbon footprint plus for emissions that we can influence. But once we've established that scope and baseline and boundary, we identify the data that we need to collect and work collaboratively. I mean, it's you know, everyone in organizations needs to get involved in this for it to actually be successful. And I think a key thing to mention here as well is in sort of identifying gaps in emissions baseline. It's really easy to sort of skip over it and say we can't quite get there. But if we're going to reach net zero, we really need to have a holistic understanding of where we are now. Once we know where we are now, then we can develop pathways to understand how we need to get to net zero. Understanding business as usual emission scenarios in the first instance will then support a gap analysis. So, you know, business as usual scenarios need to consider any planned and known emission reduction increases, for example, as a result of growth, again, which we've mentioned, external changes, decarbonization of the grid. We can't just be relying on things that are already happening. But once we know where that business as usual is, we can identify the gaps that we need to be addressing across different emission sources. And that then helps understand the technological interventions that we might need to be putting in place. I've highlighted a few things on the page that need to be considered in developing these pathways, but like I mentioned, you know, technology is going to be a key part of that, and we need to be undertaking feasibility studies. Every organization is different, so what can we actually be doing on our site that, you know, is applicable to our site and might not be applicable elsewhere? So we need to be doing feasibility studies and reviews. Kind of obvious linked, but maybe not super specific, but, you know, we'll have, essentially we end up with a list of comprehensive emission source specific interventions, but every organization is different. So some are going to have bigger impacts than others, and we can't do it all at the same time, and projects and interventions will impact each other. So it's understanding what process do we take to put one in before the other, you know, what do we prioritize over another. So this is just a high-level example of a roadmap to net zero for the NHS. Like I mentioned, every organization is different, so certain things might be less applicable and others might be more important, but we can clearly see the role of sustainable technology in delivering a net carbon zero NHS, from delivering BREEAM excellent and outstanding buildings, and meeting that new net zero carbon standard that will come out from NHS improvement in England later this year, to implementing LED replacement programs and identifying opportunities to decarbonize heat. But we need to be thinking both in terms of the quick wins and the long-term investments that need to be undertaken, and ensuring we're flexible in our approach so that we can allow for new technologies to be implemented. Thinking more around the sort of estate side, you know, heat decarbonization, that is one of the biggest challenges we face. Right now we're looking at heat pumps, but where might the gas network go? You know, is there going to be a hydrogen is going to be an option or not? Do we need to be hydrogen ready? There's so much to consider, and some of it is unknown at this stage, but if we stay flexible and up to date with technologies, then we're best placed to implement them and progress towards our targets. And that's obviously not just specific to estates, but travel. So Dan mentioned smart cities, you know, sustainable delivery of care, there's anesthetic gas recycling. These are all important technologies that we need to be considering. Once we know what we need to do, we need to deliver it. So it's easy putting a plan in place, but how are we actually going to implement it? This is just a bit of a background in terms of ETL. So we've, you know, procuring holistic technological solutions can be challenging and time consuming, but we've got frameworks that simplify the process, and they're fully public sector compliant, and they support NHS trusts and public sector organizations to implement low and zero carbon technologies for the estate. Multiple trusts have actually used these as part of their process to deliver the public sector decarbonisation scheme projects that they were successful in. Just a little bit more background in terms of the different frameworks. So a net zero carbon delivery framework that was launched earlier this year with 27 suppliers. You know, these are specialists in the delivery of these heat decarbonisation energy efficiency technologies. 4 lots under this one, all encompassing technologies, which is for bigger schemes made up of multiple projects, thinking solar PV, LED lighting, heat pumps, insulation improvements, and then heating and renewables sort of speaks for itself, but they tend to focus on sort of single projects rather than bigger schemes made up of multiple projects. So, you know, might sort of be a single solar PV project or a carbon heat network. And then metering, which again sort of speaks for itself, but in terms of metering and submetering of electricity, gas and water, building management systems, the design, supply, install, service and maintenance of BMS systems. We've got an energy performance contracting framework, also delivers carbon savings. It's a slightly different model through this arrangement. The energy service company that's selected as the successful supplier guarantees the savings over a given time frame, which offers a secure financial saving over the period of the agreement. An LED lighting framework with 6 suppliers, again, sort of self-explanatory, but LED lighting is a quick win. It's something that we can all do quite easily. A little bit, well, I say a little bit of investment, it might not be a little bit of investment, but the payback on that is there, and we need to start putting these technologies in as soon as possible. And then a battery storage framework, which fast tracks the procurement of battery storage projects and ancillary technologies such as solar or EV charging. Battery storage, I think, the take-up's been a bit slower around that, but it's going to be a key technology going forward in achieving net zero carbon. So, I mean, reducing carbon emissions in line with legislative and sector-led reduction targets is a challenge. But, as organizations, we sort of need to rethink strategically how we're going to reach net zero carbon for our estates. We can't, it's a process. We can't just be doing ad hoc things. We need a strategy behind it where we understand the impact of one thing on another and how it all works together. And these frameworks essentially remove the complexity of getting these installed and provides a faster route to market for these technologies that will help us meet our reduction targets. This is just a sort of summary slide in terms of the process of the frameworks. Most people will know how the frameworks work, but they're flexible in their approach to financing, specification development, tendering and implementation. And at ETL, we provide support throughout the whole process. But they can be worked on in terms of direct award or mini competition. And we work with you to develop the tender documents to put a specification together for those technologies and essentially help you deliver successful projects. That they're kept flexible to support organizations to put these projects in place to implement them. We need that approach that allows us the opportunity to put things in successfully, and if things are too rigid, then we don't know how to get there really. But yes, I think that's sort of my 10 minutes at this stage. But if you've got any questions, I'm happy to take them in the Q&A in a second, or we've got our email up there. But thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Daphne. There's been a lot of interest actually in the chat. There's a lot going on, which is great to see. And people are asking how they can get links to these frameworks. Is it best to just maybe give this email that you have on screen to initially start the conversation around that? Yeah, or my email, which we can share after as well. Both emails work well, but yeah, we can definitely share the information around these frameworks. Okay, perfect. What we'll do as well is this whole thing has been recorded. It will have a write-up on the website, our Sustainability Partnerships website, and we'll also have all links to all resources that anyone has offered today, and contact details if the panelists are happy for us to share them as well. So everyone who's signed up today, whether you've been able to make it to the full session or not, you'll get an email link early next week to the full write-up with all the resources then. Okay, great. So yeah, thanks so much for that, Daphne. I really appreciate that. I think that it was really interesting to learn about your points around just proof of concept, trialing things, just testing stuff out, getting people behind them. So that's really, really interesting. Ben, I know that we've got a question here for you that may be a little bit too broad for you to personally answer. But I'm happy for you to take a stab at it. Apparently there are currently over 60 different patient management software systems in the NHS, and that this is of course itself unsustainable and costly and dysfunctional on a scalable level, which is essential for the scalability. How is this sort of issue going to be addressed in the future and avoid them happening for an unsustainable future? It's a big one, and I do think it's one that we can tackle on this panel, but at least if you can give us any sort of insight on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. Hi, thanks for the question. It's actually one of my questions too, so great question. But I can give you my version. It's above my pay grade to say, to sort of force certain system choices. I know that's the kind of direction the sector's gone. I'm not sure if that will reverse or not. but in terms of embedding sustainability into digital service design in a sort of cross system way, I'm working on a few things with NHSX at the moment, looking at different mechanisms that they've got, and as part of the Greener NHS plan, it's going to be part of the Green Plan, is looking at digital now as well. And then there's also some interesting work happening through the HMG Sustainable Technology Network that is looking at how to systematically embed sustainability into things like the government digital service spend controls as well. So that's hopefully going to be some more explicit stuff about that in there that that will have some teeth. So there's lots going on in terms of how to systemically embed sustainability into digital service design, but I'm not really sure about, you know, that specific question. Would have to go to someone more senior.
Thanks, Ben. And Abdullah, there's a question here for you. Again, I don't think that you're necessarily the right person to be answering this, because you're not on the actual tender side of things, being a GP, but you have obviously been on the side of it where you're selling your services into the NHS. So the question is, the current tender process for tech implementation at NHS is outdated and mostly only focuses on the overall cost. How do you think this can be improved as a process to ensure efficient, efficacious, scalable, applicable and feasible technology for the NHS? So many adjectives there. Are you able to give us some insight on that?
Well, I mean, that's a complicated question. Yeah. I think on a simple level, yes, like there should be more value given to what your product is bringing to the sustainable environment, and I think that's not factored in at all. It's not a question which is taken on board when people are applying for these frameworks. I think for somebody who's been on the side of getting on frameworks, especially in the NHS, it's very, very challenging. It's very, very soul destroying. And a lot of it is replication for the sake of replication. You know, there's so many different frameworks that overlap each other, and you just think, well, why did we create another one? Why can't you just port the answers from one to the other? And it can become, you know, I don't know what's happening on their side, but I can imagine there's lots of printing of forms, lots of faxing here and there and everywhere else. So I think, you know, the more that they can just try to get one template, one system, which is asking the same kind of questions of the people that are coming forward, then the biggest difference they can make. Because even from a sustainability perspective, the company puts in so much time and effort to build a product, and then just trying to get on a framework is a different hurdle in itself. And that's a lot of waste of energy and time if you've done all these things and then it's not valued or recognized by anybody. So I think trying to have a lower barrier to entry to just be put on a framework and then let people choose from that framework should be a better approach than setting the barrier so high that it discourages startups because they can't afford to even get on the framework compared to the guys that are already well established in the system.
And you know, that's exactly one of the core values for sustainability partnerships. We are here to introduce the likes of Abdullah, Dan, anyone to people who are potentially looking for ways to bring new tech into the NHS and just simplify that journey for them, so that we can make way for really cutting edge sustainable systems that will benefit all of us in the future. If there are any other questions, please put them in. Since we do have about 2 minutes, Abdullah, before I'm going to wrap it up, I do personally want to know your views on the whole myth busting around Bitcoin. So please, you've got the floor, you've got a couple of minutes, let us know.
Right. So I hope at least, you know, if you don't agree with me, then at least you can take some points and talk about it over the dinner table. But there's a lot of negative press when it comes to Bitcoin, which is very one-sided. And yes, you know, I've read the article, Ben, about, you know, it uses as much energy as Argentina does. I say there's a misconception and misrepresentation, because Bitcoin is not blockchains. They're two separate issues. And even if we want to talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining, you're talking about something which is geographically independent. So if you are trying to do this kind of mining process, then you have to also ask, when we're talking about energy consumption, what is it being converted into? So we're not talking about lots of people putting on, you know, air conditioners and sound systems. We're talking about energy being converted into value. And that value is going to drive other things, such as other renewable energies. And the biggest mining areas that you have in the world are all renewable energy uses, such as in Iceland and other kind of Scandinavian countries as well. And it's going to let people move and migrate towards energy consumption for more cheaper, more renewable energies as they want to continue this kind of process. And I think the last thing I'd say as well, because it's a very big topic, but the last thing I'd say is you have to compare apples with apples and not apples with pears. So if you want to talk about Bitcoin and it's using up all this energy, which is not the same as pollution, energy consumption, are you going to compare it to the banking system? Because if you want to compare it to the banking system, then you're talking about hundreds and thousands of square feet of office space. You're talking about huge vans and lorries transporting money. You're talking about printing presses. You're talking about trucks. You're talking about bank vaults. How are you going to compare the energy being used in all the world of banking versus this thing which is online? So I think there's a lot of put downs for Bitcoin and mining, and of course it uses energy, but I think you have to look about what's a more sustainable model. And I think something being digitized, being online, is going to be infinitely more sustainable than the lorries, the trucks, the offices, the printing presses, and everything else that goes with that.
And I think that's a great line to end on. The digitalization of anything is going to be more ecologically sound than the real world version of it. And that's kind of what we're trying to get at with this entire event, Tech in the NHS. So I hope that everyone's found things very, very interesting today. I know that there's a lot more discussion to be had around this. The next events that we have 3 webinars in one day. Hopefully I'll still have my voice by the end of it. That's going to be on the 4th of June. We're starting off in the morning with transport in the NHS. So there's loads of stuff that we just talked about today. So anyone who's looking to hear a little bit more about transport, please tune into that one. There's a link that I know that one of my colleagues has put into the chat already for that. Visit our site if you can't find that. We then have a nutrition talk in the middle of the day, which is going to be really, really interesting. It's a massive part of the carbon footprint for the NHS. And then we're going to finish off with energy and facilities management in the afternoon. So anyone interested in any of those topics, please sign up to our events on the Sustainability Day of Action on the 4th of June. Otherwise, thank you to the panel. You've been super, super interesting, really insightful, and thank you to everyone who's tuned in today. There will be a write-up, there will be a recording, everything will be sent to everyone, and all the resources that you need will all be in one place. So we've managed to finish on time, which is probably a first for us. So I really appreciate everyone being as succinct as possible, and hope to see everyone again at our next events on the Day of Action. Thanks again to the panel.